All right. So, UFC 308 has concluded, and for some, it was probably the most depressing day that you've ever experienced as an MMA fan. For others, Georgians, it was a good day for you guys, okay? But, you don't have to rub it in, all right? You know? Anyways, UFC Brandon Moreno versus Albazi is happening this weekend, and I'm gonna go through my breakdown and predictions, not bets, because I don't condone gambling. I don't gamble myself. I don't bet on these fights. The whole spiel, basically. Yeah, I don't bet. Betting or gambling ruins lives. If you want to bet, hey, go ahead. But I don't. So think about that when you're making your own picks and predictions. I kind of just make picks and predictions because I have passion for the sport, and I think human society thrives off, what people are passionate about. Anyways, that being said, let's get into the predictions now. Something we need to talk about as a society, okay? And, I'm looking at my own country, Canada, all right? We need to step our shit up, all right? This is the last straw, If the Canadian fighters on this card lose, UFC, don't come back to my country, please. I don't want to be more embarrassed on the world stage, please. God forbid the women are the only one that win, alright? Holy fuck, if we have a fiasco like that, hey, it's raps for Canada. That's all I'm saying. But, this is under the new rule set, which is something I don't think I've heard a lot of people mention. 12 to 6 elbows are legal. Knees to a grounded opponent, as long as it's like, it has to be more than their hands and knees on the ground. So pretty much I think any, like, meat chunk part of the body, like, your torso, your back, your stuff like that. But you can knee people if they're just trying to play that hand pussy game, like an Aljamain Sterling. But, with that being said, this is new rule sets. So keep that in mind when you're looking at some of these fights, I don't hear a lot of people mentioning that. Starting November 1st, we're in a new rule set here. I think 12 to 6 elbows are going to be kind of wicked, A lot of the time we hear a lot of warnings whenever, someone's clinching against the cage or trying to go deep on a single leg and somebody's doing elbows and the rest like, whoa, watch it. Hey, you. Oh, wait, buddy, We know the Mark Goddards are keeping their eyes open for that. But this will be the first card with it. So, 12 to 6 elbows. Like, I want to see them. I want to see some of these fighters, get with the new game here. And some of these nut huggers. Hey, all I'm saying, you better get that takedown. You better secure that takedown. Otherwise, it's going to be a long night in the hospital, alright? No longer is the only way to beat a wrestler and knee up the middle, Anyways, that being said, let's get into the predictions here. So, starting off, we have Jack Shore versus Yusuf Zalal. Jack Shore is really, really good. Pretty tough. However, his last fight did end by stoppage. And that was because this was a weird one because it was his leg that was, like, cut up so bad they had to stop it. Don't know how that happened. But he lost to Joe Anderson Brito. Really good loss to have. And he's not bad, right? I think we all know. Jack Shore, not bad. My issue with Jack Shore is that loss to a Ricky Simone and his inactivity. Yusuf Zalal is very active. He's, he works, He's a hard worker. I'm not trying to say Jack Shore isn't. But Yusuf Zalal is a grinder, man. He got cut, was it 2022? And then he literally came back. And is now on a kind of a tear, I rate Billy Q kind of highly. I know a lot of people shit on Billy Q. I rate him fairly highly, I think Billy Q is a good test for UFC level. And he absolutely dominated Billy Q. And then he gets another submission, this time in round 1, not too long ago. So, I like this activity. I'm a little worried he might be injured. So, if he loses and he's like, oh, well, my jaw was broken or something weird like that, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm still going with Yusuf Zalal. I think he's almost had like a rebirth in terms of skill, And even in his losses, like, we're talking like he's lost to Damon Blackshear. He's, you know, looked bad against Ilia Topuria. I mean, we know where Ilia is now, right? Like, you know, and I'll be the first to admit, I was one of the haters of Yusuf Zalal. I thought he was going to come back to the UFC and get right back, you know, back to getting cut, you know? But now I'm completely on the Yusuf Zalal train. I think this is Yusuf Zalal's time. And I think he goes far, man. I think he does. I think at bare minimum, we're looking at least like a top 10 contender here. Jack Shore, a little bit of a weird loss, his last loss, and he didn't look great. I need a, hold on, speech impediment. Anyways, I do think Jack Shore's a little, I'm sensing some fraudulence in a lot of his game, you know? Striking isn't too crazy, his grappling isn't fantastic, and you're getting submitted by Ricky Simone. It's like, I can't trust it. You know, I just can't trust it. I'm going with Yusuf Zalal. Another thing, I don't look at odds. I imagine Yusuf Zalal is the favorite, but I'm going Yusuf Zalal. Moving on, Jamie Lynn Horth versus Ivana Petrovic. Now, if you don't know, I do this very high-level test when I am trying to figure out who's going to win in the women's divisions for any division as far as women MMA fights. Now, this is a high-level method. I don't recommend normal humans use it because it is, like, a little dangerous. But we're going to have Jamie Lynn Horth is the one on the left. She will be tails. Ivana is on the right. She will be heads. That's how I'm going to do it for this card. So let's see what we get here. Alright, it looks like Jamie Lynn Horth is getting it done 29-28, split decision. You know, she's just gonna have a few good rounds of hugging, and then she's gonna get dropped at one point, and that's the one round that Ivana wins, and one judge is just gonna be in the bathroom, and when he comes back, you know, he just randomly jots down numbers, and that's how it ends up being a split decision. Moving on, we got Chad Anheliger versus Cody Gibson. Ooh. This one's a rough one. This one's rough. You know. This one is a rough one. You know what? I'm gonna go with Chad. I recognize Cody Gibson isn't terrible. I recognize that for sure. However, I think Chad is losing to, like, steeper level of... I just think Chad, as far as weaknesses go, he's losing, but he's losing to, like, ranked level competition. Where Cody Gibson is losing to, like, Canadians, you know? And I think that's very bad. I don't think it's good to lose against a Canadian. You know, it really, really does hurt where you stand in the division. So I think I'm just going to give this one to Chad and then move on. And just hope... Like, Chad isn't looking great, but he's looking the least worst in his performances, you know? He's had a few decent performances overall, but at least recently, I'm just not seeing, you know? Like, losing to Jose Johnson is what it is, you know? Oh. You know, he beat Brady Heistan, right? And that knockout I rate, even though that was 6 years ago, 5 years ago. I like that, you know? Muin is, you know, Chad I think just has the better resume. So I'm going with Chad, locking in Chad. I do recognize both these guys are probably gonna, you know, their chin isn't the greatest. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I'm going with Chad, slightly on Chad. 50-50 fight overall. Moving on, we got Shirley... fucking... You fucking names, man. Against Garrett... So, Sydney versus Garrett Armfield. I rate Garrett Armfield pretty highly. I do think he's really good. I just think he ends up making a mistake. And, like, Garrett Armfield's weakness, in my opinion, he makes a mistake, and the mistake is always the strength of his opponent. And it's like, he just needs to not do that, and I think he does well. This fight, I think he actually does very well. Now, I do recognize he did get submitted by Brady. So I'm sensing a little bit of quit in Garrett Armfield. But I think his striking is, like, good enough to probably get away Sidai, whatever his fucking name is, this guy. I think his striking is enough to at least get a drop or a knockdown similar to his last fight. And I think even if he doesn't get the drop, I think he's just going to be able to get away on the scorecards, you know? I think like a solid 29-28 decision, I think would serve Garrett Armfield well here. Maybe a 30-27, but I think 29-28, because Garrett just does seem to have like one round where he always makes a huge mistake. Even against the Canadian Brad Katana, he made a few mistakes. And I know he looked great in that fight, but it's still like, that was kind of close. Brad Katana's Canadian. Let's not leave that close, please, you know? Especially if you want to be ranked. Anyways, Garrett Armfield, decision 29-28 is what I'm going to pick there. Moving on, we have Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. This one's tough because you have a fat slob who looks like shit in every fight in the past 2 years. And then you have a slightly less fat boy who's got a decent record, but he just got knocked out by Derek Lewis. Or not just, but that's his last fight. So, it's kind of tough. You have a wrestler against a guy who's good at not getting taken down, but it is heavyweight, so you have to account for, like, dumb IQ things. And Romanov could just, like, fall asleep, and if he leans forward, he just takes anyone down because he is 300 pounds when he shows up. So, it's kind of tough. I do think this fight isn't going to look close, but on paper, I think it's very close. I think this is going to be, like, one of those fights where it's like, oh, I don't know, Alexander Romanov, you know, he might have the grappling advantage. At one point in his career, he has looked really good, and then the Rodrigo side is like, well, Rodrigo, it did just get knocked out, but, I mean, Rodrigo got knocked out by Derek Lewis, and Derek Lewis, you know, knocked out this, that, and the other, but he did get knocked out in the first round, in the first minute, you know. It's going to be, like, very close, I think, on the debate. I think I'm going to go with Rodrigo, because I don't trust Romanov to just lay off the Big Macs. He's got a little bit of that Chris Barnett in him, if you will. So I'm sensing a cardiac arrest, middle of round 1, where he's going to look like it's round fucking 6 of Derek Lewis versus Ngannou. Like, it's gonna look shit for Romanov after halfway through round 1. And I think even if Rodrigo's getting held against the cage, I mean, he's still got 2 rounds after 1. So I'm trusting Rodrigo to get it done. You know, Rodrigo kind of reminds me a little bit of like a little smarter, less talented Waldo Cortez in a way. Like, I don't think his chin is actually that bad. I just think, like, Derek Lewis does have a different level of power. But I don't think he's, like, dumb enough to get taken down and laid on. I think he's smart enough to, like, avoid getting taken down for the first round. You know? And that's kind of what I'm trusting here. So I'm going with Rodrigo. Probably a TKO situation, like, garbage, pussy TKO situation where that heavyweight is just standing up, getting hit, and he's like, no, ref, stop the fight. And then they stop the fight, you know. I think it's going to be one of those. Romanov is just a fat boy. That's all Romanov is, you know. I don't know what happened. Maybe, you know, the government took his house and his wife took the kids. I don't know what the fuck happened, but Romanov is just... He's not Romanov anymore. He's the Blob, you know? And we've already got a Blob, you know? And I think it's time for Romanov to just get cut. I don't even remember. What was his last fight? Gelton Almeida. Wow, that was this year? Holy fuck. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Yeah, his last win was also Blagoy. Blagoy's shit. You know? A lot of people rated Blagoy pretty highly. Blagoy's trash. But anyways. He's just another fat guy who just doesn't have anything. doesn't train. Like, Romanov at least trains, but he doesn't train longer than a minute. You know what I mean? Where Rodrigo, I think he actually trains part-time. You know? So I'm trusting Rodrigo to get it done. Yeah, probably a late round 1 stoppage or an early round 2 stoppage is probably what I would go with. Probably TKO, but could be fucking anything if Romanov gasses the way he's been. Anyways, moving on, Charles Jourdain versus Victor Henry. Now, this is where the debate starts. Listen, man, Canada's got a few prospects on here. Listen, man, they need a win for my mental, man. If my country has another UFC event and all the fighters from my country lose on it, every Canadian from now on will be just off limits, you know? There should be laws towards betting Canadian fighters or a Canadian fight because of how dog shit they are, alright? That's the level we're going to here. Charles Jourdain, genuinely, and I mean this sincerely, is probably the best looking Canadian fighter on the roster. But he has all the talent in the world, he's got great striking, and he's got a decent submission game. Pretty wild on the feet as well. Like, he's not gonna be, you know, he's no Ankalaev. He's not a striker who just jabs. Overhand. Leg kick. Jab. Overhand. Leg kick, you know? He's gonna throw spinning elbows. He's gonna throw spinning back kicks. But the problem with Charles Jourdain, he never has a game plan, and that's the problem, you know? And I don't think his chin is actually that bad. And I don't think, like, his wrestling defense is terrible. But the problem I have with Charles Jourdain is every single fight, it looks like he goes in with all of his tools on his belt, and he has no plan on how he wins the fight. He would go against any elite level wrestler and just keep on throwing spinning back kicks or spinning elbows because he's good with them. Listen, you can be the best spinning elbow, spinning back kick fucking artist in the UFC. A wrestler's diving for your legs once he sees that you miss the first one. You know? Like, that is what it is, you know? But the problem is, right, when he goes against a guy like Sean Woodson, granted Sean Woodson's been looking good. Sean Woodson's a genetic freak. I don't know if you guys ever seen him. One of the weirdest looking human beings I've ever seen on the planet. You know, that's walking around with no known birth deformity, alright? Maybe he does and I just made fun of him for it. Fuck it, I don't care. Charles Jourdain had zero game plan for what he was going to do about the reach of Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson does his weird little, you know, that. But, like, Charles Jourdain had nothing other than, oh, spinning back kick. Oh, I missed. Okay. Spinning elbow. Okay, I missed. Okay, jab. Okay, I missed. And then he's just getting tagged by jabs because Sean Woodson's a genetic freak, you know? This is also at bantamweight, which, oh no, it's at bantamweight. Fuck. Huh. Yeah. But yeah, Charles Jourdain also went against Gene Silva. We've seen what Gene Silva did to Drew Dober, so I don't knock it on Charles Jourdain's record. Gene Silva could be a fucking future champion for whoever we know, right? But Charles Jourdain, like, I like that he's at bantamweight, because I do think he's a bantamweight. And Sean Woodson, being the freak that he is, don't fight featherweights, you know? If you're having problems with reach advantage, a lot of featherweights have good reach nowadays. Charles Jourdain, Gene Silva's just a beast, you know? He's kind of just a tough motherfucker to get out of there. And Charles Jourdain had, like, no plans to, like, okay, what do I do now if I'm not going to be able to put him out? Because he was landing really big shots, but he wasn't able to put him out, and that's kind of the problem I have. But with Victor Henry, alright, Victor Henry's not that good, okay? Like, his last win was Ronnie Yaya, but I think I've seen a lot of people pick Victor Henry in this matchup. Are we just forgetting, like, the narrative with Victor Henry before Ronnie Yaya's fight is that Ronnie Yaya was one of the best dogs on the card, and that Victor Henry has some of the lowest IQ in UFC history? Now, I know Charles Jourdain isn't no, you know, fanatic when it comes to fight IQ, but he at least has, like, UFC level fight IQ. Fight IQ. Victor Henry, I just don't think has anything going on upstairs. I really don't. A Sun Sao kind of looks like a decent fight. The draw with Javid? And we know how shit Javid is now, you know, losing to a Canadian, are we? But, I think Charles Jourdain wins this, you know? Very reluctant, because he is Canadian. However, Charles Jourdain is the best-looking Canadian fighter my country has on the current UFC roster. I don't give a fuck about a Mike Malott. I don't give a fuck about a Marc-Andre Barriault. Charles Jourdain is what I have my stocks invested into in terms of MMA. Brother is young. He's got time to really clean up. He's been around for a while. You know, like, he's got a lot of losses, but Canadians all have a lot of losses. Spoiler for who I think future on the card here. But I'm picking Charles Jourdain. I do think he wins this. I think he does. I think he's going to win based off damage, because I think Victor Henry's going to get wobbled, and I think once he does get wobbled, he's just not going to look that good. And when he doesn't look good, I think Charles Jourdain, it's going to be one of those moments where it's like, close round, but I give a slight lean to Charles Jourdain, and then he wins the round. And then, like, on the scorecards. And then, you know, round 2, it's like, close round. You know, like, Victor Henry was up on strikes, but Charles Jourdain, he dropped them. You know, so, you know, where do you really go? And then I think they're going to lean Charles Jourdain. And then one scorecard might be for Victor Henry, so it'll be like 1-1. You know, split being Charles Jourdain at this point. And then in round 3, we're going to be looking at, like, oh, Charles Jourdain is, you know, he's not losing, or he might get dropped. You know, a little bit of wobbling or, like, off-balance dropping going on. And if that happens, I think Victor gets the round. So I'm thinking like a 29-28 decision. Very close, but I think Charles Jourdain is just going to have the slight edge every round. And I'm hoping the Canadian judges have fucking mercy on, you know, the Canadian fighters. But anyways, I'm picking Charles Jourdain. Yeah, slight lean Charles Jourdain. I think he gets it done. Fuck, man. I hope he gets like a crazy knockout, spectacular fashion, whatever. But I just think it's going to be a decision, but we'll see. Anyways, moving on. Ariana Lipski, Jasmine Judavicius. Tails left, heads right. We got Jasmine Judavicius. I actually like that because even outside of flipping a coin, I mean, my super in-depth method to figure out, you know, which women's going to win this fight. I probably would have picked Jasmine anyways. Jasmine just isn't bad, but Ariana Lipski looks bad. If that, I'm not talking about visuals here, guys. All right, get your head out of your fucking Johnson. All right, you know, I'm talking about, like, Ariana Lipski has looked really shit in fights. Jasmine Judavicius very rarely looks shit in a fight. She just doesn't look great in a fight. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't look UFC level at times, Ariana Lipski. And that's kind of my main concern. Like, her striking defense looks like garbage. Her grappling doesn't really look that great. Where Jasmine looks UFC level most of the time. So I think she's going to win. Solid 29-28. Possibly a split. Moving on, we got Ayman Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. Now, this one's tough. Because, Pedro has kind of lost it, being honest here, you know? And for the Pedro fans, sorry to say it, Pedro's lost it. I think it was that O'Malley loss, but ever since then, he's just got nothing going on in his brain, you know? He's got no, like, everyone was like, Kyler Phillips, next champion. He was just showing Pedro Munoz, blah, 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 blah. I picked Rob Font to beat Kyler Phillips, and hey, what do you know? I was correct, because Kyler Phillips sucks, alright? Pedro Munoz doesn't know what a pace looks like anymore, and he's not that tough anymore at 38, you know what I mean? And, he's just kind of losing everything. Like, he doesn't look like he's trying to win rounds anymore. He looks like he's trying to prove that he can still fight, you know? And you see that with some of these old fighters later into their career. And I know Amin Zahabi's not that crazy, and you might look at the national flag and see that he's Canadian, brother of Firas Zahabi, blah, 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 blah. He wasn't born in Canada, alright, as far as I'm concerned, so hey, we don't claim him, you know? Unless he wins, then we do claim him, but, you know, that's besides the point. Amin Zahabi, some people shit on Amin Zahabi. He has been knocked out, and he has not looked great, but he's not losing, and I think that's kind of what I like about Amin Zahabi. Now, you might say he's an overhand merchant, which is kind of what he does in a lot of his fights when things aren't really going that way, but he will stay into pockets, he will try to win fights, and he knows. I think the Javid fight is actually a perfect showcase, right? It was Javid, not Farid, right? Yeah. It was a good showcase that, like, Zahabi knows when he's down on rounds, and he knows when he needs to, like, you know, and his brother's in the corner probably telling him as well, which his brother we gotta be careful with, you know. Firas Zahabi's been making some terrible calls recently in the corner, but I am trusting, like, the Zahabi to get it done. I think Amin can get it done. I think he'll probably just get a 30-27, and he'll edge every round, and we'll be thinking, like, damn, Pedro Munoz is just fucking done. And I think, like, they'll cut Pedro Munoz, honestly. It's just, like, Pedro in all of his fights, or not all of his fights, but the past, like, what, 3 fights? Kyler Phillips, no want to win. Chito Vera, no want to win. Oh, he beat Chris. Really? Chris sucks, so. Oh, robbery. Oh, shit. Okay. Okay, a little bit of robbery on Chris. Damn. Okay. Yeah, I think he's gonna lose this fight and they'll cut him. 38. He's only getting older. If he gets knocked out, even more reason. I think Zahabi actually hits very hard. So I think we're gonna see moments where, like, Munoz gets wobbled, and a wobbled Munoz will just do nothing. And I think that's really what's gonna win Zahabi in this match. Now, because he does come from Canada, I'm sensing a little bit of hands down, you know, rocked moment from Zahabi here. I think Pedro Munoz might sting him once or twice, but I think Zahabi is probably just going to be up and around so much to the point where it's just like he wins. Like I think it'll be a situation where, like, round 1 close, round 2, edge it to Zahabi, round 3 clear Zahabi, and then you just give 30-27 to Zahabi. That's kind of what I think it's going to be. Moving on to the main card. Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. Now, everyone remembers Mike Malott, the biggest fraud from Canada. Mike Malott, the absolute fraud from Canada. Gave up. Didn't give up, but he gassed out against Neil Magny in the final couple seconds of round 3. And he gave up, you know? Been a while since then. He's been training since then. I guarantee it. Everything was going straight up for Mike Malott. And he's going against Trevin Giles. Now, Trevin Giles, on paper, doesn't look that great, right? Got knocked out by Carlos Prates. Prates has been looking good, though. Let's be fair. You know, looked good against Preston Parsons, but that's Preston Parsons. Submitted by a Bomb Theme brother. Don't like that on your record anymore, but that was, like, prime Bomb Theme back when they had Aura, you know. Getting knocked out for Michael Morales doesn't look that bad anymore, you know. But I think this is going to look like a classic Canadian fight. And I mean that in the most brutal way possible. You pussy bitch Mike Malott, alright? I'm tired of this shit. You only fought Cans. You've only beat Cans. And this is your fight to show if you are a UFC level. If you're at least unranked welterweight level, you know? I'm sorry. You beat... Oh, shit. Wait, where is it? You beat Adam Fugit? Wow. You know, not UFC level, in my opinion. You beat Joanna Lainez? Not UFC level, in my opinion. Trevin Giles is at least a UFC unranked contender. This guy is, like... He's got really good striking and okay takedown defense-ish. But the thing that I think is going to be the biggest impact on this fight, I think Trevin Giles is just going to push a better pace. And he's going to be... I think it'll be round 1. Mike Malott looks good. Everyone's going to be like, oh my god, Mike Malott looks good. Around the 3-4 minute mark, you're going to see a sloppy Malott. Malott's going to get tagged a few times. And you're going to be like, don't do that again, you know? I think this is going to be a lot of moments where you're watching Mike. And you're going to be like, ooh, I don't like that. Yo, Mike, like, Malott, we gotta clean this guard up, you know? Like, we're not fucking playing hockey here. You know what I mean? Get the maple syrup out of your eyes, alright? Focus on the fight here, you know? But I think he will win round 1, like, pretty decisively. I think round 2 is where Trevin Giles is just gonna break Mike Malott. And it's gonna get to the point where, like, Mike Malott looks good early. And this might even be round 1. And then later on in the round, Trevin Giles got that jab going, snapping Mike's head back. You know, and he's getting the striking going. Mike Malott shoots a desperate takedown, but Mike looks gassed as fuck, and Trevin Giles is just ready to push him off, pushes him off, and then just kind of tees off on Mike Malott. And I think we're looking at a late round 2, early round 3 finish. And I think it's just going to look like Mike Malott gets, you know, has that quit still in him. Like, Mike Malott is turning 33, you know what I mean? Like, he's not prime anymore. And a prime Mike Malott couldn't beat Neil fucking Magny, like, in 2020, 2024, you know? Nowadays, it's like, if we looked at the UFC roster and we're looking at, like, a Jeff Neal, or we're looking at, like, Vicente Luque, or we're looking at a Neil Magny, you know, and a welterweight RDA, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't think Mike Malott can really do anything in that matchup. I don't know. I'd question it, you know. I'm 55-45 on that one, on the, you know, welterweight fucking ranked opponent. Where at least Trevin Giles, I think, has some questions, you know? Trevin Giles against Jeff Neal. Okay. You know, Trevin Giles isn't the craziest striker. Jeff Neal definitely has the power. Trevin Giles could get knocked out, but, you know, Trevin Giles could present some problems in a 3-round fight. I think in this fight, it's just Mike Malott is not UFC level. This is his test. If he can't beat Trevin Giles, he will never be anything in the UFC. You can quote me on that. I don't care if Mike Malott becomes the champion. Doesn't matter. Mike Malott, I think, is just going to get broken in this fight. And we're going to look like last fight, it was because he gassed out. This fight, it's because his spirit is going to break. And I can sense it. You know, and I just sense, like, you know, Trevin Giles at least has skin in the game. He's fighting, like, top-level opponents, you know? Carlos Prates is really fucking good, you know? And Trevin Giles was doing really good in that fight until he got knocked out. Like, he has skin in the game, you know? Early submission, I hate to see it, but he has improved his wrestling defense from then, you know? There's some hope. There's some hope. I think Trevin Giles gets it done by finish. I think late round 2, early round 3. Moving on, we got Marc-Andre Barriault. I guess fighting against Dustin Stoltzfus. I swear I have a speech impediment. I should actually get medically checked. Now, this one's tough, man. This one's tough. Oh, this one's so tough. This is so tough. Am I crazy? I do really want to lean like a Dustin Stoltzfus, but like I really also don't, you know? Like, fuck, man. I'm going with Dustin Stoltzfus. Because I can't trust Marc-Andre Barriault, and that's the only reason why. Marc-Andre Barriault, decent striker, but he doesn't have a great chin, and he always stays in the pocket. And when you stay in the pocket, that's where you're going to get chinned. So while I appreciate his dirty fighting style, and I know he's not like a boring grappler, I just can't pick him. He's almost like, Marc-Andre is like the really shitty, I'm talking really low level here, you know, Sean Strickland, you know, like, he tries to go for finishes, doesn't really get them, doesn't have a lot of heat in his hands, is chinny, but at least he tries to put on good performances. Dustin Stoltzfus gasses out in round 1, doesn't look good after it. His striking isn't great. His grappling isn't great either. Oh, man. It's like, I want to go with Marc-Andre Barriault, but he's getting older. He's coming out of a knockout loss. He's Canadian. It's like, fuck, man. Oh, what the fuck is this? Anyways, tax manager. Who needs that? Anyways, I'm sorry. I fucking Jesus Christ. I'm going with Marc-Andre Barriault. Marc-Andre can at least survive the first round, and if he survives the first round, I think he can actually get a finish. I'm going with a round 2 finish by Marc-Andre Barriault. I can see it. It's the obvious play. I think it's possible. Listen, I recognize Dustin Stoltzfus isn't that good, but I think he can still get a knockout. I'm 50-50 with this fight. I can totally see Dustin Stoltzfus getting a knockout against Marc-Andre. He's just too, like, dumb, you know? And that's another problem Canadian fighters have. They're just dumb. Like, really stupid, dumb, low level. Anyways, moving on. Caio Machado versus Bredson Ribeiro. Now, Bredson Ribeiro, this is an odd one, because he's young, but he's really chinny, you know? And I think that's kind of rare, you know? He doesn't have a win in the UFC yet, and he hasn't looked good in the UFC, like, at all, you know? Caio Machado's at least beaten... Yikes, I didn't realize Caio Machado's record's that bad. You know, this Mick Parkin fight, I actually thought he won this. Yeah, I thought this was a robbery. I thought Caio actually looked really good in this Mick Parkin fight. At times, he looked gassed out. Dontel Mays, arguably, he won that too. Like, you know, I think it's, I think this one's close. I think Caio gets it done. I do. I think Caio Machado gets it done. I think Bredson's just shit, and I think that's what it's going to be. I think Caio's not going to look great in this fight, don't get me wrong. But I think Bredson Ribeiro's just shit. Like, he doesn't have anything that's dangerous, you know? When he looks like he's getting good at grappling, he shoots a sloppy takedown, gets submitted. You know? When his striking is looking good, he gets knocked down in the next, like, 15 seconds. It's like... I don't know what's wrong with Bredson Ribeiro, you know? And he's got, like, a good reach, and he's young, and he's, like, not even at his prime yet, but he just looks like shit, you know? And I don't like to see that. At least Caio is making it close with, like, high-level competition, being a Mick Parkin, even though I rate Mick Parkin very lowly, you know? But yeah, I'm going Caio Machado. I think he gets it done. I think he probably gets a 30-27 or a 29-28. I just think Ribeiro's really shit, and I think there's going to be moments where he gets rocked, but Caio Machado's just not going to find that finish, and I think it's going to be like a Ribeiro just getting laid on, or a Ribeiro getting, or not laid on, but just getting peppered, and like, it's going to be like one of those moments where it's like, well, you could have stopped it in round 1 or 2, but it made it to the 3rd, and now there's 2 sloppy fucking, you know, skinny, fat, light heavyweights pushing each other, pretty much. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. Derek Lewis versus Jonita Denise. Everyone knows. Everyone... Oh, this changes things. This changes things. I didn't know he knocked out Austin Lane. That's news to me. For some reason, like, I remember seeing the fight, like him being knocked out. I just didn't remember his opponent. This one's tough. This one's tough, I'm not gonna lie. With Derek Lewis, it's always tough. I do think this one's gonna be a Jonata Diniz. I'm rooting for Derek Lewis. I hope Derek Lewis wins. I hope he gets a knockout. But outside of the first round, there's nothing that Derek Lewis can bring to the fight. And Jonata Diniz is fairly dangerous, and he's got knockouts outside of round 1. I know Derek Lewis is the knockout king, but like he's not. Derek Lewis is not a fighter. He is a dude who trains fighting and just so happened to knock out a bunch of guys. That's like the Derek Lewis style. He's either always losing, then gets a knockout, or just loses. That's pretty much how Derek Lewis fights. You know? Jonathan Diniz, I think, will get it done. I think he's smart enough to at least avoid the power early on. And I think he'll start making Derek Lewis question a lot of striking situations. And I think Jonathan Diniz, as long as he can survive like the first 3 minutes, I think he's chilling. I think he's cruising. I do think it'll be a Jonathan Diniz probably finish. Probably one of those KO situations where Derek Lewis just like he gets dropped head to the canvas, and it's like, oh, what'd you stop the fight? Bro, your head was facing the canvas. What do you mean? You know? I think Jonathan will get it done. You know? I have faith in the guy. I have faith in the 33-year-old prospect. Holy fuck, this card is long. Holy shit. Moving on, we got Erin Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. Now, obviously, I'm picking Rose Namajunas. She's gonna get it done. Split decision. 39, or what the I'm getting... Whoa, sorry, it's getting late for me right now. And I think I'm kind of sick. Rose Namajunas, 29-28, beats Erin Blanchfield, or 30-27. Erin Blanchfield just looks like shit in the grappling sometimes. Like, not shit in terms of technique, shit in terms of she looks like she's getting really fucking tired, you know? And I think she's too young to be up here this high, you know? I think Rose Namajunas got skin in the game, but Rose Namajunas is also shit sometimes, so I think one of the rounds she'll look like garbage, and then the next 2 she'll clean up, you know? I think like maybe round 1 will be a slight Rose, round 2 it'll probably be Erin, round 3 it'll probably be Rose, you know? I think a lot of people are going to debate about that fight, but no one really gives a fuck because it's women's MMA. Moving on. Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. Now, here's what I'll say. The better fighter is Brandon Moreno. The more experienced fighter is Brandon Moreno. The guy who's fought more high-level competition, Brandon Moreno. You know? Overall skills, Brandon Moreno. Future in the sport, Brandon Moreno. But I think Amir Albazi gets it done, and the only reason why I'm saying that, literally the only reason, skill for skill, Brandon Moreno's better everywhere. But recently Brandon Moreno, and his past 2 fights, right? Yeah, he knocked out. I mean, eye poke. You know what I mean? Even in this fight, you know, he didn't look that great against Davison Figueiredo, right? And he won because of eye pokes. Congrats. Then he loses to Pantoja, and a domination by Pantoja. I think it was 4-1, right? I mean, it was close on the cards, but, like, outside of the striking here, like, the takedowns and the control time and, you know, everything like that. For sure. And then after that, here's the big red flag I have with Moreno. Like, he feels like he has no more passion for the sport. That's the way he fights. I'm not seeing this, like, I want to be a champion, you know, let's get to work here. I'm sensing let me get into my rhythm and let me just stay in that rhythm. But he's been in that rhythm for years, and people are figuring out that rhythm. And that's why I think Royval absolutely lit up Brandon Moreno, and Brandon Moreno thought he won that fight. Huge ass red flag. No one on planet Earth could give that to Brandon Moreno. Royval pieced him up 4 rounds, if not maybe 3, but 4 rounds for sure in my opinion. But Royval is the best scrambler in the UFC by far. So he wasn't getting taken down by Brandon Moreno. My problem is Brandon Moreno is able to exploit a lot of weaknesses on the ground of his opponents. He can't be doing that with Amir Albazi. So that leaves the striking question. And while he is the better striker, in his last few fights, he doesn't look like he wants to win. He'll throw like an overhand and then waits, but he'll get hit by like 3 jabs and then throw an overhand, you know? And I know that's Royval, and Amir Albazi doesn't have that level of volume because he is like one of these boring grapplers, but like, I mean, fuck, everyone in the division is reading out how to beat Brandon Moreno, you know? I think it's also going to be really easy for Amir to get that wear and tear on Brandon Moreno's face, like a good clean elbow, and it's like Brandon's whole face is fucked, and that gives Amir Albazi the round. You know? I just think it's going to be a rough night for Brandon Moreno, because I think it's going to be one of these situations where Brandon Moreno looks like he's won most of the fight, and then, like, it's going to be like, oh, when you watch it back, well, Amir Albazi won this round, won that round, similar to his last fight with Kai Kara-France. I think the same thing's going to happen. You know? And this could be a crazy, like, first round finish from either one. Nothing in this fight would surprise me. Brandon Moreno got a knockout or submission. Wouldn't be surprised. Amir Albazi got a... Okay, I mean, if he got a knockout, I'd be, like... Holy fuck, like... I'd probably pick Amir against Pantoja. You know? Not actually, but... That'd be kind of wild. But I think Brandon Moreno just doesn't look good anymore. I think Amir Albazi... Well, he did have, like, a fraud checking against Kai Kara-France. I think he at least has that hunger in him to, like, continue to try to win. No idea how Kai didn't tap to that rear naked. I think Brandon Moreno taps that rear naked, if we're being honest. I think it is what it is. Like, Brandon Moreno's got the belt so many times, I think it's, like, it's a nothing medal to him, you know? It is what it is. I think we're going to see a lot of Brandon Moreno try to, like, convince fans... Yeah, guys, I'm still trying to be the champion. No, we know you're not. It's okay, you know? Maybe move up to bantamweight and give Henry Cejudo a good thrack-in. And then have both of you retire that night, you know? I know Brandon Moreno's young, but he's been around for a while, and I think his style's just old. You know? We have either dominant grapplers with pretty decent striking, or you have really good strikers in terms of volume or power. A Kai Kara-France for power, a volume in terms of a Royval with great takedown defense. Brandon Moreno doesn't fit those categories. Brandon Moreno is above average striking and above average grappling, but you can't get away with that anymore. You know, you have to be good in one and really good at stopping the other, pretty much. So I think Amir Albazi gets it done. I think he's probably going to get it done by decision, but I could see, like, Moreno quitting, and I'm looking at, like, a round 4, round 5 submission. But yeah, with all that being said, those are my picks and predictions. This is the last straw for Canada in the UFC. I'm done with these pussy-ass fucking Canadian fighters. Get some heart in your goddamn chest. Grow some fucking testicles and start training your kids young. We need to take over the world again. Just saying, you know? Listen, you know, Canada's never lost a war. All we have are losing fighters. Alright? That's all I'm saying. Okay? But with all that being said, I want to thank you for watching. And as always, I hope you have a good day.